In the world of the Elder Scrolls, there are a lot of powerful forces, gods, dragons, and Daedric princes, but none of them quite match the strange and reality-breaking power of the Numidium. At first glance, it looks like a giant metal golem or robot, but that's a huge understatement. This thing didn't just fight battles, it changed the rules of the universe. Some say it messed with time, others say it made multiple realities happen at once. Whatever the truth is, the Numidium is one of the most mysterious and dangerous creations in Elder Scrolls history. It all started with the Dwemer, the deep elves of old Tamriel, who were brilliant, stubborn, and obsessed with logic and technology. They didn't worship the gods. Instead, they tried to build their own. Kagrenak, one of their top engineers, came up with the idea for the Numidium. His plan was to make a god out of metal, powered by the heart of Lorkhan, an ancient and divine artifact tied to the creation of the world. Using 3 special tools, Keening, Sunder, and Wraithguard, Kagrenak tapped into the heart's energy and tried to bring the Numidium to life. But when he did, the entire Dwemer race vanished in an instant. No one knows for sure what happened to them. Some think they succeeded in becoming something beyond mortal. Others think they were wiped out by the very thing they tried to control. The Numidium was left behind, incomplete and silent. That could have been the end of it, but it wasn't. Thousands of years later, the future Emperor Tiber Septim got his hands on the Numidium after making a deal with the Tribunal, the ruling gods of Morrowind. In exchange for political independence, they gave him the dormant golem. Since the heart was gone, his team built a new power source, the Mantella, a massive soul gem that might have held the soul of Zurin Arctus, the Underking. With the Numidium powered up again, Tiber Septim used it to conquer all of Tamriel. The machine was unstoppable, flattening cities and forcing entire nations to surrender. But it wasn't just a weapon, it was something bigger, something that bent the very nature of the world to his will. Later, in the events of the Elder Scrolls II, different factions all fought for control of the Numidium again, and somehow, all of them won. This created the Warp in the West, one of the weirdest events in the series. Dozens of different outcomes happened at the same time, and the game's world updated itself to reflect all of them as real. It's like history was rewritten overnight, and everyone just acted like it had always been that way. That kind of reality breaking is why the Numidium is so feared. Then in Morrowind, a second Numidium shows up, built by Dagoth-Ur, a powerful enemy who wanted to use it to spread a deadly disease called the Blight across Tamriel. Powered again by the heart of Lorkhan, this new Numidium, called Akulakhan, was stopped before it could awaken fully, but it showed once again how dangerous this kind of creation could be. So what even is the Numidium? It's hard to say. Some believe it's a tower, a special structure in Elder Scrolls lore that helps keep reality stable. Others think it's a kind of glitch in the world, a leftover piece of Dwemer ambition that doesn't follow normal rules. Either way, the Numidium isn't just a giant machine. It's a symbol of what happens when mortals try to control godlike power. Its existence bends time, warps history, and messes with the Elder Scrolls themselves. The scrolls are supposed to tell the future, but after the Numidium was used, they became more unpredictable, like the timelines themselves had been damaged. The Numidium might not be active anymore, but its impact is still being felt. It's a reminder that in the Elder Scrolls universe, trying to play God always comes with a price. Whether you see it as a weapon, a god, or something even stranger, the Numidium is one of the most fascinating and terrifying mysteries in all of Elder Scrolls lore. To really understand what the Numidium is, and why it's such a massive deal in the Elder Scrolls universe, we have to look at its origins. And that means talking about the Dwemer. The Dwemer, also called the Deep Elves, weren't just another ancient race. These guys were something else entirely. While other cultures were praying to gods and spirits, the Dwemer were busy trying to figure out how to replace them. They didn't believe in the gods as divine beings to be worshipped. Instead, they saw them more like forces of nature, or systems that could be studied, understood, and eventually outdone. That's where Kagrenak comes in. Lord Kagrenak was the chief tonal architect of the Dwemer, which is kind of like saying he was their top scientist, philosopher, and engineer all rolled into one. He had this insane idea. What if you could take the literal divine essence of creation, the heart of Lorkhan, and use it to power a mechanical god? Not a metaphorical god, not a symbol of belief, but a real, physical being that could walk the world, reshape it, and act as the ultimate force under the control of the Dwemer. That being would be the Numidium. Now, the heart of Lorkhan is no ordinary object. According to legend, Lorcan tricked the other gods into creating the mortal plane, which they saw as a kind of prison or trap. When they realized what had happened, they tore Lorcan apart, and his heart fell into the world, buried deep beneath Red Mountain in Morrowind. The Chimer, ancestors of the Dunmer, worshipped the tribunal gods and guarded this sacred place. But the Dwemer, being who they were, didn't see the heart as sacred. They saw it as a power source. Kagranak designed 3 tools, Keening, Sunder, and Wraithguard, to tap into and manipulate the heart's energy. With those tools and the heart, he set out to activate the Numidium, transforming it from a lifeless brass shell into a god. But what happened next is one of the biggest mysteries in all of Elder Scrolls lore. During the Battle of Red Mountain, as war raged between the Dwemer and the Chimer, Kagranak finally put his plan into motion. He struck the heart using his tools, and the Dwemer instantly vanished. Not just the soldiers at Red Mountain, all of them, across the entire continent, gone. No bodies, no graves, no screams, just empty cities and dead machines. Even the greatest minds of Tamriel have no idea where they went. Some believe they were absorbed into the Numidium's divine matrix, becoming part of its godhood. Others think they were erased from reality itself, punished for daring to manipulate something beyond mortal comprehension. A few even say the Dwemer succeeded, but they now exist on another plane entirely, unreachable and unknowable. And the Numidium? It never got fully activated, at least not then. It remained unfinished, like a god without a soul, a massive brass corpse left behind in the mountain, still humming with ancient power. And that's what makes this moment so important in Elder Scrolls history. It wasn't just the disappearance of a race. It was the first real sign that the Numidium was something more than a weapon. It was tied to time, to reality itself, to the fabric of the world. The Dwemer didn't just build a machine. They created a force that could bend the rules of the universe, and they paid the price for it. When later figures like Tiber, Septim, and Dagoth-Ur tried to use the Numidium or build their own versions of it, they were picking up pieces of a puzzle they barely understood. That's what makes this story so chilling. The Dwemer were the most brilliant people in Tamriel's history, and even they couldn't control what they made. They reached too far, and now they're gone. And yet the Numidium still echoes through time, like a ghost of ambition, waiting for someone else to try again. When the Numidium finally came back into play, it didn't just walk into a battlefield and crush some armies. It tore a hole in time itself. This happened during the events of the Elder Scrolls II, which is where most players first heard the name Numidium, though it was called something else at that point, the Brass God, or simply the Mantella-powered golem. Even though the Dwemer had vanished, the pieces of their god machine remained, scattered, waiting to be brought back to life. In Daggerfall, the Numidium is the prize everyone wants. The story is set in the Iliac Bay region, where dozens of kingdoms and powers are all locked in a cold war over a powerful artifact called the Mantella, a soul gem infused with divine energy. This gem was originally meant to replace the heart of Lorcan and serve as a new power source for the Numidium. The twist is, depending on the player's choices, you can give the Mantella to one of several factions: the Empire, various regional rulers, the Orcs, the Underking, or even the nefarious King of Worms. Whichever group gets it ends up activating the Numidium and using it to pursue their own goals. But instead of just picking one real ending and making that canon, Bethesda did something no one saw coming. What happened next is what fans call the Warp in the West. It's one of the strangest, most mysterious events in the entire Elder Scrolls universe. In just one day, the 9th of Frostfall, 3E 417, the political map of the Iliac Bay changed completely. Dozens of kingdoms disappeared or merged overnight. Castles were destroyed and rebuilt. Rulers died or were replaced with no explanation. Everyone in Tamriel knew something had happened, but no one could explain how. Official Imperial records simply said that multiple powerful groups somehow all managed to use the Numidium at the same time, and all of their outcomes happened. Every possible choice from the game became canon simultaneously. Normally, in storytelling, only one timeline becomes real. One ending counts. But the Numidium broke that rule. It shattered linear time and created a pocket of history where every version of reality unfolded at once. Each faction got what they wanted. The Empire expanded. The Orcs gained recognition and a kingdom. The Underking was finally laid to rest. Even the King of Worms ascended to godhood. How could all these things happen at once? No one knows for sure. But it's widely believed that the Numidium was responsible, not just as a weapon, but as a force that disrupted the normal flow of reality. Think about that for a second. This wasn't just a giant machine that stepped on cities. It was a metaphysical nuke that warped causality and rewrote the script of the world. Historians in-universe don't even try to explain it fully. Some say the Numidium operates outside of time. Others believe that the gods themselves stepped in to merge the timelines to prevent even worse chaos. But one thing is certain. Once the Numidium was activated again, nothing was the same. The warp in the West became a turning point in Tamriel's history. It wasn't just about political change. It was about the idea that time, choice, and consequence had all become optional. That a single machine could make every ending true, all at once. It's terrifying if you really think about it. And this isn't the last time the Numidium or its echoes would show up. But here, in Daggerfall, is where we really saw what it could do when turned loose. It didn't just win a war. It rewrote what it meant to win anything. Reality itself bent to its will. And after that day, the universe quietly agreed to never talk about it again. But the damage was done. The Numidium had moved, and the world would never fully make sense again. By now, it's obvious that the Numidium isn't just some Dwemer version of a giant robot. After the warp in the West, most people stopped thinking of it as a weapon and started seeing it for what it really was. A force of nature, or maybe something worse. It doesn't just crush cities and destroy armies. It messes with reality itself. Time stops making sense when the Numidium shows up. Events contradict each other. Outcomes happen all at once, and entire chunks of history seem to rewrite themselves. The deeper you look, the more it seems like the Numidium was never really meant to operate within the rules of the universe. Or maybe it was designed to rewrite those rules entirely. This is where things start getting weird, even for Elder Scrolls lore. The Numidium isn't just a machine made of brass and steam. It's tied to some of the most metaphysical concepts in the series. One of the biggest is Kim, which is this strange idea that true enlightenment comes from realizing the universe is a dream, and that you're a part of it, but choosing to keep dreaming anyway. It's like achieving godhood through awareness, without destroying everything around you. Most people who reach that level of understanding just vanish from existence. It's called zero-summing. But a few rare beings, like Vivek or Tiber Septim, manage to embrace Kim and still exist. And here's the thing. Tiber Septim used the Numidium. Some fans believe he achieved Kim through it, or that the Numidium itself was somehow built to act like a metaphysical tool for reaching that state. After all, the Dwemer weren't just engineers. They were tonal architects, people who believed the universe could be manipulated through sound, math, and intent. Then there's mantling, another major theme in Elder Scrolls lore. It's the idea that if you walk like a god, talk like a god, and act like a god, eventually the universe just accepts that you are that god. Some think the Numidium is the physical representation of that concept, not a god itself, but a thing that allows other people or powers to become gods by stepping into it. A divine puppet suit, in a way. It doesn't have a soul of its own. It's more like an empty throne waiting for someone to sit on it. That might explain why so many different factions have used it, and why its behavior changes depending on who's in control. It's not the Numidium that acts. It's the will behind it that shapes reality. There are a few in-universe texts and quotes that back this up too. In the book Where Were You When the Dragon Broke, scholars talk about moments in time where reality fractured and history took multiple paths at once, just like what happened during the warp in the West. And the Numidium is always right there in the center of those events. Another example comes from The Truth in Sequence, a series of texts tied to the Clockwork Apostles in ESO, which treat the Numidium as a kind of divine paradox, a god that was never alive, yet more powerful than anything else. One passage even describes it as the death of all limits, which feels accurate considering what it does to space and time. And maybe that's the real point. The Numidium isn't meant to be understood in a normal way. It was created by a race that disappeared the moment they tried to give it life. A race that tried to replace the gods with their own version of divinity. The Dwemer didn't build a weapon, they built a statement. They wanted to prove that mortals could become more than divine, that they could rewrite the rules entirely, and they nearly did. The Numidium doesn't just fight wars, it changes what a war is. It doesn't just move through time, it punches holes in it. In the end, it might not be a robot, or a god, or even a being at all. It might just be an idea, the most dangerous one the world has ever seen. A machine that asks the universe a question it doesn't know how to answer. It's pretty clear that the Numidium isn't something you can explain in simple terms. It's not just a big Dwemer war machine. It's something deeper, stranger, and more dangerous. It breaks time, rewrites events, and seems to bend the rules of existence whenever it's activated. And because of that, there are tons of different theories about what the Numidium really is. Some are grounded in lore, others are more abstract, but all of them try to answer the same basic question: what did the Dwemer actually build? One of the most well-known ideas is the time-eating machine theory. This one basically says the Numidium's true purpose wasn't just to win battles, it was to consume and reshape time itself. When the Numidium is activated, time doesn't move normally. Instead, it folds, duplicates, and breaks. We saw this in Daggerfall during the Warp in the West, where every possible outcome somehow happened at the same time and became canon. This isn't something a normal weapon does. It's something that affects the timeline on a cosmic level. Some fans think the Numidium was designed to devour the current reality and replace it with one more in line with Dwemer beliefs, a world without gods, where logic and willpower rule. Maybe they didn't just want to kill the gods. Maybe they wanted to erase the very idea of them by tearing apart the timeline and rebuilding it from scratch. Another big theory is the empty god. This one suggests the Numidium doesn't really have a will of its own. Instead, it's more like a divine suit of armor, a hollow god that can be filled by any being with a strong enough will. This would explain why Tiber Septim could use it, why it acted differently under various factions during the events of Daggerfall, and why it never seems consistent in how it behaves. The Numidium might just be a perfect vessel for mantling, a way for someone to become divine by stepping into something built to contain godhood. But because it's hollow, it's also incredibly unstable. It reflects the user's will, but magnifies it in ways that reality itself can't always handle. That might be why using it tends to cause huge, reality-breaking events. It's not that the Numidium is evil, it just does whatever its wielder wills, even if that tears the world apart. Then there's the anti-tower theory. In Elder Scrolls lore, the towers are metaphysical constructs that stabilize and shape reality. Each tower has a stone, something that anchors it to existence. The Numidium has a similar setup. It only works when it's powered by the heart of Lorkhan, which is its stone. Some people believe the Numidium was made to counter the towers, to tear them down and replace their function with something new. Instead of upholding reality, the Numidium might be a tool for dismantling it, stripping away the old rules and replacing them with the logic of the Dwemer. That would explain why it's so dangerous, and why its use is always tied to huge shifts in the world's structure. It's not just ignoring the towers, it's actively attacking the pillars that hold reality together. Finally, there's the idea of failed godhood. This one's more tragic. It suggests the Dwemer tried to make a god, not worship one, but actually build one, and failed. The Numidium, in this view, is the broken result of that attempt. It has the body of a god, the power of one, but none of the soul or spirit. It's incomplete, and because of that, it's unstable. That might be why the Dwemer vanished when Kagrenak tried to activate it. They were trying to cross a line mortals weren't meant to cross. They wanted to remove their mortality, erase their connection to Lorkhan's curse, and ascend to a higher state of being. But instead, they got a machine that could destroy the world, not reshape it the way they hoped. The Numidium is the husk of that failed dream, an empty, powerful thing that doesn't know what it is and breaks the world just by existing. What makes all of this even more fascinating is that none of these theories are definitively proven or debunked. Bethesda's never come out and said, this is what the Numidium is, and that's probably intentional. Like a lot of Elder Scrolls lore, it's meant to be open-ended. You're supposed to wonder. But that mystery is what gives the Numidium its power. It's not just a machine or a character. It's a mirror, something that reflects the fears, ambitions, and beliefs of everyone who tries to use it or understand it. Some see a god, others see a mistake. Some see a tool for freedom, others see a weapon of annihilation. And maybe they're all right. Or maybe the Numidium is still becoming whatever it was meant to be, and the universe hasn't figured it out yet. Even though the Numidium was last seen in action long before the events of Skyrim or ESO, its shadow still hangs over everything in the Elder Scrolls universe. It's like this lingering scar on reality itself, something that only showed up a few times. But every time it did, the consequences were so massive that the world could never fully recover. Even centuries later, people still feel the ripples. You can see this in how the Lord dances around big metaphysical questions, how time works, what gods really are, what mortals are capable of becoming. All of those questions trace back in some way to the Numidium. It's the thing that forced the universe to ask itself, what happens when mortals try to hijack the rules of existence? It didn't just break the timeline in Daggerfall. It broke the idea that reality in this universe is stable. Ever since then, it's been kind of accepted that time isn't linear. History can be rewritten, and maybe there's no such thing as one true version of events. That's the kind of damage only something like the Numidium can do. Not just break the world, but make people question if the world ever made sense in the first place. Even in games where it doesn't appear, you still get hints that the Numidium's influence hasn't gone away. In Skyrim, the Thalmor are obsessed with controlling the towers and the mythic structure of reality. Why? Because the Numidium proved that the structure can be controlled or destroyed. It's like the ultimate proof that the rules of existence are vulnerable, and that if you know enough and have the willpower, you can bend or break them. The Dwemer tried to do that, and they vanished. Tiber Septim succeeded, depending on who you ask, and became a god. The Thalmor now want to undo what he did. It's all part of the same conversation, the same metaphysical tug-of-war that started with the Numidium. Can you change reality by force? And what happens if you do? Even in Elder Scrolls Online, which takes place long before Daggerfall, you can feel that weight. The Dwemer are long gone, but their secrets are still being hunted. The power of Lorkhan's heart, the mystery of the towers, the idea that divinity is something you can steal or build, it's all part of the same legacy. And that's really what the Numidium has become, a symbol, not just of power, but of hubris. It represents what happens when mortals reach too far, when they try to replace the gods or become one themselves. It's the ultimate. We were so preoccupied with whether we could, we didn't stop to think if we should. The Dwemer built it not because they wanted to protect themselves, but because they wanted to unmake the world and rebuild it without gods, myths, or chaos, just pure logic and control. But the irony is, in trying to escape chaos, they created it. The Numidium didn't bring order. It brought instability, the warp in the West, the disappearance of its creators, the shattered history of Tamriel. It's like a divine mistake, constantly reminding everyone that there's a cost to playing God. At the same time, the Numidium also stands for something deeper, free will. Every time it shows up, someone uses it to impose their own vision of reality. Tiber Septim used it to conquer Tamriel and ascend to godhood. The factions in Daggerfall used it to reshape the political map of the Iliac Bay in every possible direction at once. The Numidium doesn't just act, it reflects the desires of whoever controls it. That makes it terrifying, but also fascinating. It's not a character with goals. It's more like a cosmic paintbrush, and the user gets to paint reality in whatever colors they want. Consequences be damned. And then there's the idea of chaotic divinity, that maybe the Numidium is a god, just not one we understand. It doesn't follow the usual rules. It doesn't teach, or bless, or demand worship. It doesn't even have a clear identity, but it moves through history like a force of nature, breaking everything in its path, leaving behind silence and mystery. Maybe that's its divine role, not to create, but to disrupt. In a universe full of gods tied to ideas like time, death, knowledge, or love, the Numidium might be the god of broken things, a divine glitch in the system. Not evil, just incompatible with the world as it is. So, in the end, maybe the Numidium isn't something you're supposed to fully understand. It's not just a machine, or a god, or a mistake. It's all of those things, and none of them. It's a question the universe still hasn't answered, and maybe never will. But one thing's for sure, it changed everything. And even if it never walks again, its echo still shakes the foundations of the Elder Scrolls world. So, what is the Numidium really? A god? A weapon? A mistake? Maybe all of those. Maybe none. It wasn't just built to fight wars. It was built to challenge the very concept of reality. Every time it moved, something fundamental broke. Timelines shattered, gods trembled, empires rose and fell in the blink of an eye. And yet, for something so massive, so destructive, it remains a mystery. No clear answers, only pieces, a vanished race, a shattered West, a world still trying to make sense of what it did. The Numidium isn't just part of Elder Scrolls history. It is history, in a way no other being or force could be. It walked through time and rewrote it, not with words, but with presence. And maybe that's the most dangerous thing of all. Not that it kills, but that it questions everything. What is a god? What is a person? Can the world be changed just because someone wants it badly enough? These aren't just lore questions. They're the heart of the Elder Scrolls universe. And the Numidium is the loudest, strangest, most powerful answer to them the series has ever given.